start with immigration. You know, there were a bunch of raids here on the island in April, May. And as Armando mentioned earlier, you know, coffee harvest is tough this year because everyone's still afraid from those raids. And they don't know what to think. And there are a lot of rumors about the Hawaii Police Department and how it was involved or is not involved. So you've started, you know, in this role, I think September 1st. Can you fill us in on the current policies of the Hawaii Police with regard to immigration? What people need to know now about immigration on the island?
So it is the policy of the Hawaii Police Department that we do not assist with or do any of our own immigration enforcement. The policy is pretty straightforward. It exists for a number of reasons. The first is we don't have the jurisdiction, we don't have the resources, and we don't have community support for such action. So we really, I mean, it's really a cut and dry policy as far as it relates to the department and immigration enforcement.
Is there pressure you experience from federal agents or agencies to get involved? What happens if someone in the department's approached by a federal officer who says, "We want your help"?
So from my perspective, as the chief of the department, I have not encountered any pressure for us to participate in that type of enforcement. And you know, I would not succumb to such pressure even if it did exist. That's just it's just a non-starter for me. As far as you know, individual officers, I don't know of any such situation that has occurred thus far.
And there is, I believe, an agreement for space sharing with federal agencies. Does that get used, and does that bring folks in contact?
So there is contact. I mean, you know, as I explained, you know, as I try to explain, you know, we have long-standing relationships with our federal partners, and we have important investigations, we have important resources that we rely upon. And, you know, quite frankly, up until January of this year, it was a non-issue. Nobody mentioned immigration enforcement. It was not something that was done, other than perhaps if it was connected to a narcotics investigation or whatnot. And then, you know, a lot of things changed in January as it relates to some of the things that our federal partners are doing, or some of the priorities they have. But we remain working with them in many other aspects of law enforcement that has nothing to do with immigration.
Would you consider, Chief, asking them to relocate?
I have thought about that, and I would consider it, but I have to be mindful of the other investigations that we have and how that would impact those other important investigations that primarily have to do with narcotics trafficking, which is a very important and a very important it's a priority, rather, as far as enforcement on our island, Hawaii Island, and the state in general. There is a lot of narcotics trafficking, and I have to be very mindful of how a decision I make may impact narcotics trafficking on Hawaii Island.
We saw a big enforcement action recently in Waimea, and first of all, appreciate the quick response confirming that it was narcotics or something other than immigration. But definitely it was seemed like a big action. Yeah, a lot of stuff.
Sean, I believe you had some follow-up questions on what actually happens with immigrants during apprehension, like happened in May.
Yes, thank you for that, Sam. I was concerned actually after we heard from the Aloha Latinos that talked about children being sent to California as well. And I was wondering about chain of custody. So what happens with these individuals once they're apprehended, and how do families find out where they are? Who do they call? And are police involved in any of that?
So yes, the answer is no, we're not. And I am not sure exactly what the chain of custody is as far as the federal government is concerned. It's my understanding that families are relocated to Oahu and they spend some amount of time there, but I don't know. I don't know after after the federal agents take into custody people for immigration enforcement and they begin deportation. I don't know what happens, but we are not involved in it. We don't have any we don't have any chain of custody as it relates to immigration enforcement.
And just a follow-up, thank you for that. Follow-up is like, I just have a scenario for you. Say you are involved in a traffic stop and you find an undocumented immigrant or someone whose status is undetermined. What is the protocol, and you report that to ICE?
So the first part of that is that if let's assume that like you said, there's a traffic stop and there is a undocumented individual or someone suspected, our officers are not to inquire. Okay, so if you're a passenger in the vehicle or you're uninvolved in the reason for the traffic stop, our officers are not to inquire. That is the instructions that they have. They are not to ask for immigration status because it is not pertinent to any investigation that we have moving forward. Now, if the driver, let's say the driver of the car, and I don't know what in this scenario, what the traffic stop would be for, if the driver is arrested, our arrest logs are posted, so they're public. So if someone is in custody for something else, then that's a different story. Then at some point, immigration enforcement officers may intervene if they choose to do so. But my directive to my officers are that they are not to inquire. So we are not. So there would be no calling of of immigration enforcement or whatnot because we are not to inquire to begin with.
Inquire and also not report. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. We there's no we do not at a traffic stop. We're not going to inquire, and then if they are undocumented people, call immigration enforcement to come. No, that is not something, because that is essentially, right, would be us doing immigration enforcement. Essentially that would be what that is if we were to facilitate identifying and holding people waiting for immigration enforcement. Essentially that would be us participating in that enforcement.
Mhm. As soon as they are arrested, though, are they not added to some kind of federal database? Is that part of the process? That there's a
I'm not-
report
Not,
that,
not a, I mean, an arrest database maybe, but
Yeah,
not a
arrest
federal.
database.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not an ICE database. It's a federal, or it's a national database about an arrest, is what I understand happens, and that
Yeah,
is
yeah, and I don't know
accessible.
who has access to that. I don't know if ICE would have access to
Yeah.
that.
We understand they do, but that's not you reporting it per se. It's them
No.
monitoring the national.
Well, like
um,
Chief said, we have a public booking log, so that's made available to
That's
anybody.
what I meant.
you know.
Right.
And that's the same log we would look at if we were.
Yep, you can look at a website. Yep.
Mhm.
Now, on a related issue that's come up a lot nationally, there are these funding provisions that were in the July federal bill that were tied to 287G agreements and things like that, where there are these provisions around funding for police departments that are tied to cooperation with federal agencies. Does any of that apply here in Hawaii?
So we won't, if there's any federal funds that are attached to cooperating with or facilitating immigration enforcement, we're not gonna accept the funds. Plain and simple. That's not, we won't agree to that. That's my stance on it, and that's the department and county stance.
And are there any agreements other than 287Gs that are in place around immigration that are, inherited from prior work? No.
Not that I'm aware of. I know now, though, that when we apply for grant funding, right, there's different boxes that you check, and one of the boxes that you check is that if you are willing to participate or facilitate immigration enforcement. And, we don't check that box, because if the grant funding is tied to that, then we're not accepting the grant funding.
Thank you.
Got it.
Sam, can I urge that we let Armando ask, since he has to run
Absolutely.
away?
Absolutely. Armando, you're muted. We can't hear you, Armando. You need to unmute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Okay.
great.
Okay, I necessarily don't have any questions for the chief and this assistant chief. I just have a comment. I known Assistant Chief Bird for over 3 years, and she attended one of the when Aloha Latinos was started. She was there and supported us, and I have had various meetings with Chief Manuha, and I find him to be a good person, family oriented, and I think he should be our next chief, because I'm afraid that if we get somebody from the mainland. I grew up in Arizona, and I had bad experiences with the police there. They're more racist, and I had a case. I was picked up once just for because I had protested against Arpaio a while back, and then they picked me up. They took me in back of a parking lot. They roughed me up, and they wanted me to to try to escape. So they could put more charges on me, and so I'm afraid we're gonna get somebody from the mainland like that to be our chief. So I'm supporting Chief Manuha, and I'm supporting Assistant Chief Bird. I think they make a good team, and I spent a lot of time with them lately and before, and I know they're gonna work with our community, and they're family oriented. So that's my that's my priority, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Armando. Thank you.
Thank you.
Armando, can we ask you, is your Aloha Latinos community continuing to experience enforcement actions now? Not by HPD, but by ICE.
It's been quiet for a little while. The fear's still there. It's been quiet, but it's just it's not it's not to the best interest of the Hawaii police, to be involved with ICE, because they're and I know the chief realizes that, and because it gives them a bad name, and people don't trust them. Then that's what's been going on in the past when ICE has come, and they didn't follow people's rights, and so that kind of in the Hawaii police, they were out there, maybe directing traffic or but it looks bad on them, and I know that they realize that it's not for the best interest for the Hawaii police and our community.
Can I ask, if you are experiencing something that's concerning, are you able to call the police chief or the department? How is that working?
They've been very open to communication. They have shared their personal numbers, and if any concerns or any violations, they have open expressed to me that I could call them and speak to them. So I know we have the MOUs and, I think, we do need to work on them, but I think right now, we just have to get a good chief that is going to support us and our community.
Appreciate that.
Super.
Can I ask if there's anyone else with questions? Steve? Nancy?
Yvette, I think, just had her hand up.
Sorry that I didn't submit these in advance.
No worries.
So I think it was last week on the island of Kauai, there was a kidnapping where a Colombian migrant is here legally. I forget, what do you call it when you're you're not a refugee, but you're escaping
He had asylum.
persecution. He had asylum. That's right. I couldn't
was
think of the
granted
word
asylum.
asylum. So he had a scheduled court date for November. And ICE contacted him and wanted him to check in. There was nothing, he had nothing on his record, no reason to deport him. ICE told him to check in, and when he did, they deported him to Honolulu, and he's in detention there. And I wanted to know if something similar to that happens on our island, if a migrant who is in good standing gets contacted by ICE and is demanded to check in, could they ask the police department to escort them to the meeting to make sure they don't get detained and taken to the detention center in Honolulu? So that's my first question.
So I would have to get more information on exactly how that works or why they were checking in. I don't really, I would have to know more about the individual situation to properly comment on it. Yeah, I mean, because if the person is here legally and they don't have any reason for them to be deported, I'm not sure exactly what happened. Like, I can't comment on it because it doesn't really make sense to me that somebody, could be just deported like that.
Does anybody have any other information about that particular case that's on this call?
What you could do is just frame it as a hypothetical, Yvette.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to do that for me, Deirdre? You're really good
Yes.
at that.
So, yeah, hi. Let's say, as a hypothetical example, if a community member in good standing is legally present in the United States and there's a valid concern that they will be kidnapped and disappeared by ICE if they show up at a particular place where they've been asked to show up, Yvette asked, in that hypothetical situation, which is not hypothetical, it's happening all over the country, but it just, let's just keep it a hypothetical for purposes of this question.
Sure.
Would the Hawaii Police Department be willing to accompany people who are here legally and have no criminal record or charges? Would they be willing to peacefully accompany them to these meetings to help perhaps keep those people from being kidnapped and disappeared by ICE? Is that a good way to explain it, or what you were trying to ask, Yvette?
Thanks, Deirdre.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so if I don't know that the police, I would have to know what the resources of the department, what type of resources would be required by the department. Like, for example, as in this hypothetical, if this situation is going on, if the federal authorities are asking for an interview or some sort of check-in, and let's assume that there are it's happening 3 or 4 times a week. Let's just say that's what's happening 3 or 4 times a week. And the people that are checking in, they are afraid. They don't know who they're meeting with. They don't know what's going to happen. they don't know, right? Because you're just getting, I'm assuming you're getting just a phone call. You're getting a phone call from somebody and this person is saying, hey, I'm with fill in the blank federal agency and I need you to come check in. And if they have those types of concerns, then certainly they could call the police department and we would be happy to make sure that everything is legitimate. But if this is going on, let's say the federal government is doing this 500 times a week, then, that would be a situation in which our resources really wouldn't allow for us to participate in that type of thing. So I don't know, how common this is or how much it's going on. But if I had more information about what exactly we're talking about, then, and I'll look into it to find out, what type of check-ins are we talking about, and is that real? I mean, are people really, being told to check in that have no, reason to be deported, and then all of a sudden, they're gone. So I guess that's the best way I can give an answer to the hypothetical.
Thank you. So the second question I have is, I'm assuming that you view us as a peaceful group, that we are not terrorists. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So thank you. So, are we, if Trump does the Insurrection Act, are you going to enforce it against us for protesting?
So I would have to say that I would need to do more research into exactly what the local police role is in if a federal mandate or a federal decree were to come down and the president were to invoke the Insurrection Act. I don't know what the local police role would be in that. But I can tell you that we don't Hawaii is a special place. The community and how, even if you go back to protests that involve real hot button issues that were here prior to this, like TMT, for example, the police department and how we interact with the community is different. And the community and the police department are one in the sense that we have family members, we have people that we've known a long time on both sides of the debate. And the police department is never going to be in a position to pit us against our community. We're never going to be in that position. So I don't know exactly what the president's going to do, and I don't know exactly how that would impact local police. But what I can tell you is, from our perspective, we are never going to take a heavy hand or do anything to other community members that we frankly care about. And so that's, it's hard to answer the question because I don't know what our role would be in that or what the ask would be of us in that. But I can tell you that we don't view people that are protesting as anything other than other members of our community that are voicing their, that are voicing their opinions protected by the United States Constitution.
I would like to ask a follow-up to that, and then I have Doris and Deirdre. So there was public reporting that on Tuesday of this week, the FBI director and DHS secretary sent a bulletin to local police departments around the U.S. referencing the National Security Presidential Memo 7, NSPM 7, which declared a bunch of activity, domestic terrorism. And this terrorist word's been thrown a lot around this week in national news and things like that. Have you been approached by the FBI or DHS or anyone else from the federal government around cooperation on, quote, domestic terrorism or anything similar?
No.
Okay. If you were, how would you answer?
Well, I mean, there has to be a compelling case that someone is a domestic terrorist. And of course, if someone is a domestic terrorist, we would absolutely cooperate. I mean, but you know, this has existed prior, you know, for, you know, as long as I've been a police officer, we have had terrorists that were here, and not here on the island, but here in the United States. And we have cooperated with the federal government in looking for those terrorists. But there has to be a compelling case to be made that this person or this individual is a domestic terrorist. It can't be just a wide brush that everybody that you know does a certain thing, or everybody that believes a certain thing, or is protesting a certain thing is a domestic terrorist. That doesn't pass, you know, that doesn't pass the you know the test of common sense.
And you would include uh, peaceful protests as not passing the common sense test?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Great, thank you. So I think Doris is next and then Deirdre.
Thank you, Sam. And I'm very encouraged, Chief Mahuna and Assistant Chief Bird, by some of your responses to these questions, and glad that the odds at this point are good that we won't be talking to each other on different sides of the cell bars. So, because it will be us that would be the first ones in these scenarios, I'm afraid. So a couple questions. One is, I'm wondering if you've, are any of the current ICE agents or immigration agents, are any of them using face coverings? And would you be in support of a law, if we can get it through the Hawaii legislature, that would require proper identification as you use, and no face coverings? And may I ask one more question, add it to the queue there, which is just, how many ICE agents are there on island? And where do they have office space? So if I'm sorry if that's too many at once, but
No, not at all. Not at all. So, you know, I don't know exactly what the reason is for the face coverings. I mean, I don't, it just doesn't, I'm sure that the federal agents have reasons that they're articulating, but from my perspective, I don't think that we could allow that. I mean, I guess if there was for my department, I guess if there were a compelling medical reason, maybe, or there was a reason that the officer was undercover for some reason. But for the most part, you know, proper identification of law enforcement is key, right? That's a key component to how we do business. So, you know, I would have to look at the proposal or the proposed legislation to make a you know a fair determination on whether or not I would support it. But I would say as a rule, you know, if you're pulling up to somebody, and I mean you have a vest on that says, you know, police, well, I mean, you know, anybody can get that. You know, I mean, that's not, you know, I mean, that's not a difficult thing to get. So people have to know that if they're being taken into custody, that they're being taken into custody by a legitimate, you know, police officer or law enforcement officer for a legitimate reason. So as a general rule, I support our officers being clearly identified. That's name, that's badge number, that's no covering on their face as a general rule. Now, I would have to be, you know, I'd have to look at the legislation to make a, you know, a final decision on how we would or wouldn't support it. But as a general rule, and I think, you know, I told this to, you know, Sam in our meeting that we had in person, that as a general rule, I just don't see how we as a department could operate in that fashion, because it would be, I mean, it would be very difficult for community members to understand who's taking them into custody, what's going on. It's just very difficult. And then the last part, sorry, the second part of the question, I believe that we have 2 agents. I believe there are 2 agents that are on island, and I know for sure there's a desk here at the Hilo Police Station, but I don't know if they have a desk in Kona.
I think they do.
That they may have a desk in Kona as well.
And have you noticed, just as a quick follow-up, if I may, have you noticed any change in the agents' duties recently? Or are they still are they still completely focusing on narcotics investigation?
So I don't, by recently, I'm not sure exactly what, how recent you're talking about, but from, so I used to be I used to be in AC Bird as well. We used to command narco vice sections. I was a lieutenant, she was lieutenant in narco vice. And prior to January, the agents, by the way, haven't changed. They're the same agents. But prior to January, I mean, there was no discussion. Nobody talked about immigration enforcement. There was no, I mean, it was 100% on narcotics and whatnot. And still till today, we rely on them a lot for narcotics. That's the high percentage of the investigations that, that, well, 100% of the investigations that we are involved with the, these ICE agents do not have anything to do with immigration enforcement, but the vast majority of them are narcotics based. So, have we noticed a change? Yeah, there's a change, because before no one even talked about it. It wasn't even done.
Thank you.
Deirdre, I think you're next.
Thanks. I'd love to ask a couple of clarifying questions about questions that have been asked before. And then Sam, I just want to check in with you. I have bigger questions of my own, but I don't want to ask them if you all are going to ask bigger questions. So
No, feel free. Go ahead.
okay, so first, my clarifying questions. The 2 ICE agents who are embedded in the police department, are they HSI?
Yes,
or are
they're
they
HSI
okay?
agents. Sorry,
Okay.
they're HSI agents.
Right. So just to clarify, HSI is a subgroup of ICE that traditionally held itself to higher standards. They were the investigative branch of ICE, and they did things like sex trafficking and immigration, and I'm sorry, sex trafficking and narcotics. And since the new regime, they have been shifted over into immigration enforcement, sometimes exclusively and sometimes jointly. So I'm just clarifying for other folks here to make it clear that who you used to be working with were truly investigative folks, and who they are now, it's unclear. That's one thing. Second point, or second question I wanted to ask, is back at the beginning, you had mentioned that your jurisdiction as a county police department precludes you from engaging in immigration enforcement, at least for the moment, unless you have various agreements with the federal government. And so from my perspective, the answer that you independently didn't do separate immigration enforcement is yes, of course. You never had the jurisdiction for that, and you still don't have it. However, the questions that I want to raise are collaborative questions with ICE, and now this murky thing that might be HSI and might be joint. That is, and first let me say, I am not on the Aloha Latinos board. I am an ally to them, and I'm independent. So I want to be very clear, and I'm sorry for the background noise. I'm parked beside the street in my car. I am not I do not speak for Aloha Latinos. This is my own separate opinion and separate questions, and based on a lot of work that I do, not only with them, but I'm an attorney and an activist in Los Angeles and all along the length of the southern border on both sides, and also in Detroit. So I just don't want anything that I'm about to say, if it upsets you, to be attributed to Aloha Latinos. Um,
Speak up, Deidre.
okay. So last time ICE was in town, eyewitnesses, and there's video footage of this as well, showed that the Hawaii Police Department under Chief Ben were setting up traffic and pedestrian perimeters around ICE, enabling, all appearances were enabling them to do their job and protecting them from the citizens and residents of the Big Island. And as a result of those raids, those folks who were taken into custody, many of them were taken to the Hawaii Police Department and held there for some period of time. And eyewitnesses, and there are, again, eyewitnesses indicated that counsel was denied them. Both counsel themselves calling and saying, I'm an attorney and this is my client and I need to speak with them, and also those who were detained saying, I want to speak with my lawyer. So next time ICE / HSA or whomever comes to town, I have very, very specific questions for you. Will you be setting up traffic and pedestrian perimeters to protect those raids? And will you be transporting the people who are kidnapped in those raids to your police department?
So if federal agents are here and they're asking for our assistance as it relates to their safety, okay, so they feel that they are not safe, okay, we would always respond to a call for assistance as it relates to safety. So if our if federal law enforcement were here and they needed some sort of assistance as it relates to their safety, we would assist. We are not, though. I'm not sure what type of perimeter was set up at the time, but we would not be setting up a perimeter. So let's say, for example, they say, look, we're going to come in and we're going to do a enforcement action on this building. Okay, it's a building, and we believe that they are undocumented immigrants inside of this building, and therefore we want the police to set up a perimeter around this building so that nobody can come into access the parking lot of the building. Okay, I would view that as us assisting them in immigration enforcement. That's how I would view them. Okay? That's how I would view that. Okay, but if they went to this building and they were doing enforcement, and all of a sudden they were they needed help, they were being overrun by fill in the blank. I couldn't tell you what it would be. Okay, and they needed help, and their safety was in jeopardy, we would assist them in that particular instance. Now, as far as our station is concerned, I don't know that that is occurring anymore, but let's assume for a minute that it would depend. Like, so if for example, immigration enforcement agents had some undocumented people that they were deporting, and they were in a van. They were in a van somewhere in a parking lot, and they, I don't know, they didn't have a flight, or they didn't have any facilities, and we could offer these people that are in custody a conference room that has air conditioning and access to water and access to a bathroom. You know, those are things that we may do if this particular situation were to arise. But if immigration enforcement calls me up and says, hey, chief, we're going to do this particular we're gonna do enforcement action in this particular area, and we don't have a building to put all of the people that we're going to take into custody, so can we use your Kona station to house all of the people that we're going to take into custody? And the answer is no, because if that's the case, then I think I would perceive that as us assisting in immigration enforcement. So it depends on how it unfolds as to what we would do or what I would allow.
Okay, so can I do what I think you're saying is you're creating a distinction between the intentions and behavior of what happened under Chief Ben and what, at least for the time being, is going to happen under your leadership. Would you be willing to sit down with community members and create some sort of protocols that would clarify and that would build trust and that could be implemented when we know they're coming back, when they come back? Is that something you might be willing to do?
I'm always interested in collaborating and meeting with community members and getting their input on whatever department policies we have. So to answer your question, yes, I would be willing to sit down with community members and have a discussion.
Okay, here's my last question then. Everything that you have said has suggested to me that you take a far different stance than your predecessor, and then was presented at the time the MOU was brought up earlier this year and expanded. Would you be willing to be part of a coalition that would ask for a bill just in the county, forget about the state just for the time being, because that's harder to control, but as the county law enforcement leader and other groups in coalition with you, would you be willing to put forth a bill or to terminate and then ban MOUs, ban 287Gs, and ban cooperation with these joint federal task forces that do anything with regard to immigration, and at the same time, for your own police department, ban masks, except of course in legitimate undercover operations or medical conditions, ban masks, and mandate identification and uniform as part of a something that reflects the values and the policies that you're saying you want to do that are different than what's been done before?
Okay, so the first part, the first part of that question, banning or revoking or canceling our MOUs that we have with federal agencies. So for that, I'm not necessarily in favor of canceling all of our MOUs, but I am absolutely in favor of making sure that all of those MOUs don't include anything that has to do with us cooperating with or facilitating any type of immigration enforcement action. And then the other part, I think, part number 2, I think you mentioned the what was the second one? The 287G, I think that was what it was.
Yeah, would you be willing to just as a part of one continuous thing? Because as we know, if we say no to one thing, they'll just push through another door that we've left open.
Right.
So would you ban
yeah.
287Gs as well? Agree that that's something you wouldn't enter into?
We're not going to enter into the 287 Gs. That's not going to happen. The third, what was the third part? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. It's what Sam was referring to, the NSPM 7, the National Security Directive, using pre-existing joint federal local task forces that are now, according to this decree, mandated to be used to track down people, and it was specifically named people such as Indivisible, those groups, etc.
I would have to take a look at that. Directive exactly. I don't have it here in front of me, so I might need to do some time and to research that. And then the fourth part is the masking, right? The masking. So for my department, unless there is a legitimate reason, as you said, maybe medical and or undercover work, we're not doing that. So for my officers, they are going to be identified, and they are going to have their they're going to have their faces uncovered. As far as what the federal departments do. You know, I don't have any jurisdiction over
Right.
that. I don't know.
Exactly.
But for me, my department,
Right.
you know, that is something that we're not going to do.
All right,
We're
so it sounds like what we could do is to sit down with you and craft something regarding all the MOUs, 287Gs, joint federal local task forces, and what the officers in your department wear, and we could come up with something that we could put in front of the county council and that they would sign and the mayor would sign, and it would become binding policy or binding law here in this county. Is that what, am I hearing you correctly, that you're willing to go through a process that could end up with you being willing to support and be a leader, because it's about, you know, your department's behavior in something like that?
I'm certainly willing to have the discussion and work through it. I don't know. I can't commit to where that's going to go, because, you know, I have no idea who's going to be involved and where that final document will go and whether or not I can support it. But I certainly want to have that conversation. That's who I am. You know, who I am is somebody that wants to meet with members of the community, and I want to be collaborative because, you know, we're all in this together. And that's I mean, that's the reality of living on Hawaii Island, is that we're all in this together, and what affects one of us negatively affects all of us negatively. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you. I really appreciate that very, very much. And that's the end of my question.
That, I think you've had your hand up for a while.
Hi, yeah, Chief Mahuna, I have some a follow-up to something that you had said about if ICE contacts the Kona PD because for safety issues, because they feel unsafe in their endeavors, and I feel like that's a red herring. We're not doing anything against them. Safety is a subjective thing, and as we've seen with the police, they've over and over and over again said they don't feel safe when they shoot people and murder people. They don't feel safe. What the fuck are they doing that job for, is what I say. So it's sort of like the stand your ground laws, which is also subjective. If you don't feel safe, you're allowed to shoot somebody. So I want to know, who are the Kona police to believe in for safety? Aren't we, the citizens, really more the ones you should be protecting? I know they're citizens too, but they might not even be from here. So I feel like that there needs to be something where the citizens are actually protected over the ICE agents. I don't know how you would do that, but I think and if there are officers that have a bias about this, we're screwed. So, I mean, a bias against us, that they're more concerned with working with law enforcement than protecting the citizens. And so how do you, what do you have to say about this, the subjectiveness of safety?
Well, I mean, I guess you said it perfectly, right? It is subjective. So, you know, we have to go along. We have to go with what our, you know, law enforcement. If a law enforcement officer is saying that they need help, that that their safety is in jeopardy, I mean, we have no alternative but to respond to that call for help. I mean, there's not going to be a litmus test that we can do on the fly to determine whether or not that is legitimate, you know, in someone's eyes. So, you know, we have to, and we would respond to a call.
Well, could you at least go into it with incredible suspicion, knowing that they lie, that they are liars, that they're fascists, and the citizens are not? I mean, seriously, whatever they say about their safety is probably a lie. We're not terrorists on this island. We're not doing violence to them. We're just defending ourselves. So to me, the safety thing is a red herring. So please be suspicious.
Could I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Armando.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, just had two short
And
questions.
Shauna, I
Like,
have you next. Go.
how does it work? Like, I'm an ICE agent. I show up to your office. And I say, "Oh, let's go pick up Armando." You ask them, "Let me see the warrant." You know, like that, because you know, in the past they have operated without warrants or anything like that. And then I know you have a team, the Hawaii Police, that, you know, supposed to assist ICE, you know, according to the MOUs. are you willing to retrain them, you know, kind of refresh, you know, what they're supposed to be doing and what they're not supposed to be doing?
So if a federal agent is serving a warrant, and if the warrant is related to immigration, if it's an immigration warrant, we're not going to go and we're not going to serve that warrant because again, that would be I would feel that that is us assisting with immigration enforcement. If let's say a federal agent came to a member of my department and wanted to pick somebody up, then yes, we have to know why we're picking that person up. We have to know if it's legitimate. We're not just going to go pick people up and you know, without knowing that there's probable cause to take them into custody. And then, well, I'm sorry, Armando, what was the second part of your question? Training. Would I be willing? Yes.
Yes.
So I think my position, and we just had a commanders meeting yesterday, and I made my position clear again as it comes to immigration enforcement. I've told my commanders that there is to be no immigration enforcement done by Hawai'i County police officers, and that includes asking people their immigration status. If they're, I don't want any of that. And so as far as training is concerned, we will look into if there can be, if there is any training that would be appropriate. But my position, I think, is for them is crystal clear that they could participate and they can work with our federal partners when it comes to our narcotics enforcement, sex trafficking, crimes on the internet, money laundering, you name it. But immigration is off the table. Off the table.
Shanna,
Thank you.
I think you're next. And I think,
Is it me, Shauna?
yeah, Shanna, go ahead.
Well, thank you so much, again, from the League of Women Voters of Hawai'i County. We are having our annual general meeting on November 8th. And I did call your office, Chief Mahuna, but I didn't get a call back, but it's okay. We really would like you to come. We have a small panel and we're discussing civil liberties and how they look during Japanese internment as well as today with the ICE raids. We invite everyone, of course, on this call to join us at the University of Hawaii. We want to honor those who have been through the Japanese internment because there's a lot of lessons to be learned about that and how they lost their civil liberties. I mean, we did give them an entire generation of Japanese reparations for it. And I'm concerned one day we may have to give reparations to these immigrants who have been violated as well. So I'd really love to have this conversation with you. We have a panel, but we'd love to have you just come and give some information if you'd like Nancy and everyone else to come and join us. We do have a hybrid, so if you're not able to come in person, you can come via Zoom. And as you mentioned, you are available to the public, to the community, to build trust. And this is what we want to do. We want to make sure that we don't repeat the mistakes of the past. We know that Kilauea Military Camp and other places on this island have been used for internment camps. And those places are now no longer used that way, but I hear that there's some places that may be revived for that use. So I hope that we don't have to go through that, terrible history of violating the rights of our fellow human beings just because of their race. So thank you very much for the work that you do. And we look forward to having you as our chief. If we move forward this way in trust and community, and knowing that our civil rights and our constitutional rights will be protected by our law enforcement, those who we pay. So we thank you so much for your work.
Thank you.
Sam, can I suggest that after this is over, we'll send out the flyer for the League of Women Voters event on November 8th. I'll send it to you so you can have it. And also make sure that you both have it, Chief Mahuna and Bird.
Absolutely. We are at time, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So thank you very much. We really look forward to having you continue in this role, we hope, and we really want the spirit of open community engagement to keep going. It
You
makes a
know-
big difference.
I just want to say that I appreciate it as well. Look, I understand that there's going to be different viewpoints on all kinds of different issues, but how I look at it is no different than my family. I have family members and we all have different views. Okay, but we all care about one another and we all want the best for one another. And that's how I view this community. That's how I view this island, this very special place that has basically given me everything that that I have in my life, other than my wife and my children. Everything that I have was given to me through this job and through this community. So that's how I look at it. Even though we may differ on our opinions on certain things, we can all disagree as family, and we can all move forward communicating with one another and making sure that even though we disagree, we all care about each other and we want the best for one another. And you can, for as long as I'm in this role, however long that may be, you can count on that from me. And I really appreciate the time and effort everybody had, coming to this meeting. I really do appreciate it.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Mahalo nui loa.
Thank you.
We'll see
Take
you in
care.
a few weeks, probably. Bye-bye.
Yep, absolutely. Take care.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Sam.
Bye, Armando. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank
Thank
you,
everybody. Thank you.
everybody.
Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you,
See you
everyone.
Saturday at the protest. Let's have a great
Yes.
protest.
Thank
See you
you.
Saturday.
Aloha.
Aloha. Thank you. All right.